Hi all, we are PTE for sure. We are providing complete training to successfully crack PTE exam with your desired score. We will provide you tips and tricks to get 65 and 79 in PTE. After enrolling, our course's material would be provided online. For more information, kindly contact through WhatsApp or other details mentioned in the video.
Amory Lovins is an American consultant experimental physicist, and he has been active at the nexus of energy, resources, economy, environment, development and security in more than 50 countries for over 40 years. He pays attention on energy saving and how to use energy in a more efficient and sustainable ways. He built a house with plenty of energy-saving concepts. He's an unusual character with a wide range of knowledge and a genius, but he's not a scientist. He has a consulting company and lives in the mountains. For 30 years, he used a lot of ways to save energy and solved problems with technologies that already existed and demonstrated them. Some people think he is so crazy. A female writer wrote a book about him which is called Mr. Green. Under appropriate conditions, mind you. Sound receptors. You've got sound receptors in your ear and they are beautiful. We're not going to talk about them at any length, but there's these little spiky things going along in your ear, and they can translate vibrational energy coming from your ear, hurting your eardrum, being translated into a vibration into the fluid in your ear, into a physical motion of these little receptors there, into an electrical motion, into an electrical signal that goes into your ear. So, all of that's pretty impressive stuff. We're not going to talk about the details of it, but I invite some of you who want to learn more about this, particularly MIT students, I think find receptors really quite remarkable kinds of devices.
When this dog approaches some food, another dog's playful snarls are played back. The dog seems curious, but the sound doesn't stop it from taking the bone. Here, a dog hears the growls of a dog being approached by a stranger. But these don't deter it from grabbing the bone either. In another scenario, the sound of a dog protecting its food is played back. This time, the dog backs off. These experiments suggest the dogs can distinguish between different types of growls. The lecture was about the Melk Monastery, which comprised the reasons for being unique and other monasteries. The spokesperson described a grand foundation, and essences of later foundations emphasized the significance of being in the countryside. Ultimately, although both making foundations in towns and owning a substantial amount of land could be inferred evidently from locating in the Austrian Republic, impacts of the existence of grand old monasteries were acknowledged.
The lecture talks about the Melk, and there are several reasons why this monastery is not typical. First, the Melk is very grand, which most later foundations aren't. Second, it was founded in the countryside, whereas a good proportion of foundations were made in towns. Third, it still owns substantial amount of land, as it lies in the Australian Republic. The Melk is not typical of all monasteries for many reasons. Firstly, it is very grand, which most especially later foundations aren't. Secondly, it was founded in the countryside, whereas in 17th and 18th centuries, a good proportion of foundations were made in towns. Thirdly, it still owns substantial amount of land, because fourthly it lies in the Austrian Republic, the only European country where grand old monasteries have been in continuous existence, since they were founded 900 to 1000, even in one case 1200 years ago.
There is a survey with 100 CEO, who has been through acquisition and merger, about which area of activity should contribute most effort. Most of the responses say it is information technology, because it is the most time-consuming and needed most of the work. The key is how quickly IT integration can be achieved, and clear understanding of consequences if it not done correctly. Other two aspects should be worked on are marketing and of sales and financial management. In the few minutes that remain of today's class, I'd like to discuss next week's schedule with you. Because I'm presenting a paper at a conference in Detroit on Thursday, I won't be here for either Wednesday's or Friday's class. I will, however, be here for Mondays. Next Friday, a week from today, is the midterm exam, marking the halfway point in the semester. Professor Andrews has agreed to administer the exam. In place of the usual Wednesday class, I've arranged an optional review session. Since it is optional, attendance will not be taken. However, attending the class would be a good idea for those worried about the midterm. So, remember, optional class next Wednesday, midterm, Friday.
In the Western countries, women are becoming more and more reluctant to give birth to babies. However, the male status in the society remains strong as ever has in recent years. The birth rates increased during 20th century, but it remains to decrease in the last 2 decades. In the year 2000, the birth rate remained at around 1%. There are even some negative birth rates in other countries. Birth rate dropped to its lowest point that has never been seen in the history. It also has impacts on male in the society, especially the young man, and it might have some connection with unemployment rate as well. I want to explore certain issues with you. There is no conclusion to my talk, there is no closure. I think over time throughout history, cities have changed in whether they were strategic spaces or routinized spaces. This, our global modernity, is the time when cities are strategic. That does not mean all cities, but that means that certain cities throughout the world become spaces where our most acute problems, our major government challenges, hit the ground, become concrete, become urgent. The city, urban space has a capacity to pull down a lot of stuff that otherwise stayed up there. Take the environmental question. National states can talk and talk and talk for years. Kyoto took years, but in the meantime, cities had to deal with the environment list.
Let's say if I'm asking which source do you often use to get information? Newspaper, radio, TV. And the survey shows 62% of the people chose internet. You might be thinking I am going to say how important the internet is, or how quickly it has changed the world for a few years. But what if I tell you this survey is conducted on the website globalandmail.com? Our answer will be different because the people who did this survey on a website must be frequent users of internet. This sample is a biased sample. So we have to pay attention to how a survey is conducted.
When you look at the label on a hazardous chemical product, the lovely picture looks nice and won't make people think of dangerous meanings. The warning information is only displayed at the back. This design is very concerning. The warning font is small, which makes it even more difficult to read. 60% of Americans cannot recognize fonts smaller than size 10, and 40% of Americans are illiterate. While people cannot recognize easily or cannot read, they won't be aware of the hazards of these chemical products.
The British Standards Institution is a service organization that produces standards across a wide variety of industry sectors. All products must have a BSI license to get access into the market. There are two types of standard. One is compulsory, and the other one is elective. Under the compulsory standard, the products cannot come into the market unless they meet the requirements. Otherwise, without the license, these products will be seen as illegal. This is for the purpose of safety. Take matchboxes as an example. Now this picture is a picture sort of artist's impression before the space age of what Venus might be like on its surface, and so this was looking at the planet Venus. It was science fiction and science fact, and also tell you about some the latest results about Venus express what share same actually some Earth last picture, but to logic think that's my idea.
Well, they're the absolutely fundamental notions that you seem to need in describing the world: cause, property, relation, number, quantity. Notions like this, the sort of thing that makes many people who don't like philosophy find it turns them off. But that's the sort of thing that philosophers have traditionally talked about when they try to describe their view of the fundamental nature of reality. They wanted to place these things in an order, and that's exactly what Anderson did.
If you like our video, kindly subscribe our channel and also press below bell icon. Thank you.